Today is the 30th of Shevat, and it's also Rosh Chodesh Adar. It is the beginning of this month of tremendous, unbelievable joy. And what we're doing today is we are completing the journey that we've been on from chapters 18 through 25. It's really been one idea that we've been exploring. And so we are concluding that today. And we're really focusing on the idea that we've been saying throughout, which is really how fundamental the idea of knowing that I would give up my life for God is, and how that plays an impact on my daily life. Moshe commanded the children of Israel to recite Shema daily before they entered the land of Israel. This means that only this second generation was commanded in the mitzvah of Shema. If we look at where we find the mitzvah of Shema, it's in the book of Devarim, which is the 5th book of the Torah. And this is really Moshe's pep talk, going out, hardcore speech that he gives the children of Israel. Before we're going to the land of Israel, we're not going to have Moshe as our leader. We're going to have Yeshua as our leader. And so really, this is him just like empowering us with everything we're going to need for our next journey, living in the land of Israel and transitioning out of the desert. And this is when we're commanded with the mitzvah of Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. We shall love Hashem God with all our heart and all of our soul and all of our me'odecha, all of our more. And so the question is just begging to be asked, why did the generation that lived in the desert need this? Meaning, the men, the only people who are entering the land of Israel at this point are the people who were the men who were younger than 20 and were not involved in the sin of the Chet Egel, or the sin of the spies at the time that it happened, or like they were children at the time, and the women and children are going to the land of Israel, meaning it's really this new generation of people. So meaning the people who lived in the desert, that left Egypt, they were not commanded in the midst of Shema. So why didn't they need Shema? If we think about it, Shema is the battle cry of the Jewish people. Shema is a basic. Shema is a foundation. There's the stories after the Holocaust where people who were looking for Jewish children, they knew that Jewish children had been smuggled into orphanages. And now these orphanages were not necessarily being forthcoming with letting these Jewish children return to Jewish homes. And so what these brave rabbis would do is they'd go into orphanages looking for these Jewish children, and they'd say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And the children then would start crying, say, Mommy, Tati, right? They knew it. Those were familiar words for them. They were words from their moments with their parents. Then they would know that these are Jewish children that they would need to rescue. Shema is foundational to us. So why did this generation that left Egypt not need it? And only those who are now entering the land of Israel need Shema so importantly. The purpose of Shema is to accept God's sovereignty upon yourself, right? That Hashem is my God. To the point that you're willing to give up your soul for God. You should love Hashem God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your more. So literally to the point of nafshecha, to give up your soul for God. And this is a point of really understanding Hashem Echad. Hashem is one, not just there's one God, but I exist in God, to the point that to cut myself out of that connection, that's death. Meaning for the soul, death is not physical death. The soul is on. Death is spiritual death. To the point that I'm willing to give up my soul rather than, to really give my soul over to God rather than to commit idol worship in this world, rather than disconnect myself. And so this is this message that we've been having throughout 18 to 25 is if I would die for God, how much more so would I live for God? So we want to understand why this promise was why this empowerment of Shema was so important for this generation that's going to the land of Israel, because God was coming with us. God had our back. It wasn't like all of a sudden we were just it was a free-for-all, God was abandoning us, God forbid. No, Hashem was coming with us into the land of Israel, as we see directly in the quote in the 5th book of the Torah, Deuteronomy, Devarim. The second generation had been given a direct promise that they would be taken care of. This is the quote. No man shall stand before you. God will cast a trepidation and dread of you upon all of the land where you will tread. Right? So why do we have to be prepared to give our lives up for God? Right? We didn't have to be prepared to give up our souls for God. That wasn't the reality that we were facing. We were going in with God as our shield. It's just a story about this quote, this promise that we have that God will cast a trepidation and dread of you upon all the land. When we conquered the Kotel, in the conquering of reclaiming Jerusalem in the Old City. So one of the first soldiers to get there was a man, and he realized that he's not going to have long there. He didn't even mean to necessarily get to the Kotel. They weren't that, he just found himself there, and he started wrapping his tefillin. He's like, if I have a minute here, I'm going to put on tefillin. He's the first person to put on tefillin in who knows how long. And as he's putting on tefillin, right, he was being watched, and they saw this mega bomb on his head, right? And they're like, okay, we have to retreat. And it's actually what caused many people to retreat. They're like, he has this weapon. And in truth, that was his tefillin. And this is this promise that I will cast a trepidation and dread of you upon all the land where you will tread, right? Through Torah and mitzvahs, we are untouchable. That is how we have this promise from God for absolute protection. Okay, so Torah and mitzvah observance depends on your constantly reminding yourself of your own willingness to give your soul up for God. So if the love for God in my heart would cause me to die for God, then yes, I'm willing to live for God. Meaning, no one's asking us to give up our soul for God, right? That's not what the Alter Rebbe is trying to inspire us to do. Like, you should want to give up your soul for God. That's not what he's saying. He's saying you would give up your soul for God. That is who you are. We have a spiritual protection inside of us, just like our same way we have this adrenaline rush that kicks in when we realize that our physical life is in danger, that takes over. We have a spiritual adrenaline rush that says, no, my soul is in danger. My connection to God is in danger. And that is the Havas Mitzvah. It is the dormant love that's within every single Jew. It is a gift from our patriarchs and our matriarchs. It is endowed within us, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's a spiritual reality. The Alter Rebbe isn't telling you how you should be, that you should give up your life for God. He's telling you who you are. In your essence, you would give up your life for God. And that is good information, because if I'm willing to give up my life for God, then wow, yeah, I'm willing to live for God. Meaning, all I have to do is like not just give up a simple pleasure, give up a simple desire, right? Overcome my desires in order to stay connected. I would give up my life for God. Once I understand that, I can avoid any prohibition. And also I can overcome my laziness or my heaviness of like, I have to pray now. Prayer involves sitting, standing, right? The mitzvahs, okay, I'm going to cook for Shabbos. Like, I can put in this physical exertion because I would give up my life for God. So it's really just understanding myself. Once I understand that's who I am, this is my spiritual self-preservation mechanism, is that I would give up my life for God, then how much more so I'm willing to live for God. So knowing that who I am, that I give up my life for God, this isn't because this generation going to the land of Israel was going to have to give up their life for God. It's in order to Torah and mitzvahs, I need to know how dedicated my soul is, how absolutely committed I am. And that empowers me to choose God in the little things, to choose God on a daily basis. So this second generation needed this deep dedication consciousness to resist assimilation once they left the desert and entered the land. So also to be able to have the spiritual protection, realizing, wait, I give up my life for God. So yeah, this is my life. Torah and mitzvahs are my life. Okay, that person's worshiping an idol over there, and maybe they look a lot richer than I am, and maybe they look a lot happier than I am. Woo, that does, I want to join their barbecue over there. But remember, wait a second, would give up my life for God. Yes, I'm going to choose to live for God. This was the message to the Jewish people that is now going to face the challenge of living amongst the nations and the challenge of assimilation, God forbid. And so this is a generation that needed to hear, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Here is Hashem is our God, Hashem is one. That I would give up my love of God to the point of giving up my soul. That is who I am. And with that battle cry of the Jewish people, I'm ready to go into the world. The willingness, quote from the Tanya, the willingness for matronam, right, giving up our life for God, needs to be inscribed in your heart always, literally day and night. It should not pass from your consciousness, because through this, you'll be able to stand against your impulse to evil at all times and at any moment. Anytime you're tempted to sin, just say to yourself, I wouldn't worship idols. And this is really the same. This is going to disconnect me. This sin's going to disconnect me from God. Or not doing this mitzvah is missing an opportunity for a connection. And so if I would give up my soul rather than be disconnected in the case of idol worship, this isn't any different. And like we've stated earlier in this chapter, the red line of idol worship is, that's the big no-no. We drew that red line. For Hashem, any sin is disconnecting myself. Right? And so it's just that's when my self-preservation mechanism of my soul kicks in full alert and takes over. But really, that red line is with every single prohibition. That's Hashem saying, that's my boundary. That's a boundary that's going to disconnect us. And sweetheart, I don't want to be disconnected from you. I want to be connected to you. But I'm putting it in your hands. I cannot force the relationship. Or it's not a relationship, it's a dictatorship. I want this to be a relationship, and my red line, I'm telling you, is the 365 prohibitions of the Torah. And through crossing them, we're disconnecting through any of them the same way that I'm disconnecting through idol worship. And when I take that to heart, then we have the power and the encouragement that we need to be in any situation and to choose Hashem. To choose Hashem in the big things, but as the Tanya is teaching us, to choose Hashem in the day-to-day choices. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn Tanya together. And Mazel Tov on completing this section of 18 to 25. And we're now in a whole new journey of Tanya starting next chapter 26, starting tomorrow.